Welcome to the Connectable podcast.
The Connectable podcast starts in 3, 2, 1.
We're going to do it a little bit differently tonight. I'm going to attempt a solo episode. I don't know what that's going to be like. I've never really done that before. So this could be awful. And if you think so, please let me know in the comments or in the DMs, or send me a text saying, hey, never, ever, ever do that again, because that was terrible. I'm fine. I can take it. I'm a big boy. And so, like, if you were hoping for a guest because you enjoy their perspective, not going to be here. If you are a huge fan of Deb and you're hoping that she's going to pop in at some point, not going to happen either. So that being said, if you're only here for those two reasons, you're not the biggest fan of me, or you don't want to hear me talk for 15 to 20 minutes, then I would say you should probably leave now. That being said, if you just enjoy the show, if you enjoy what we bring to the table, then hopefully this is not too rough on your ears as you're listening to this. But yeah, basically the schedule got a little wacky for a bunch of different reasons. Deb's been crazy busy with school and her teaching. I'm gonna be honest. For me, the schedule got wacky because of the San Francisco Giants playing in the National League Division Series, and I was like, "Well, I'm not going to record on days that they're playing because I'm too invested." And I'll tell you what: if you're a fan of sports, it is you want your team to win, right? Like, you want your team to go as far as they possibly can. You want them to win the championship, the Super Bowl, the NBA title. You want them to win the World Series. You want them to win, but at the same time, it's incredibly stressful watching your team in a playoff situation because you're on pins and needles the entire time. I literally feel like I aged 50 years. I started out 33. Now I feel like I'm 83. That's what it feels like when you watch these playoff games. Obviously, if you're a baseball fan, you know that the Giants lost, which is heartbreaking, is a bummer, but it is weird because now watching all of these playoff games where I don't have a team in the running, way more enjoyable. I can enjoy baseball for just baseball's sake, and I can get excited about matchups. I can get excited about these fun series. Can't do that when my own team's playing because I literally feel like I'm going to get sick. I feel like I'm stressed out. I don't have any gray hairs. I might now because of these baseball games. It's just too much. That being said, that whole baseball rant, because of this, it threw the schedule off because I couldn't record on days they were playing because I had to watch the games. I just couldn't help it. So anyways, we're doing this episode the night before it's going to drop, and it's just me, like I said. So, I was trying to figure out what did I want to talk about? What did I want to talk about in this episode? Again, I'm trying to keep it short and sweet. And I thought, hey, let me talk about connections. That's why we do this podcast. The tagline for this podcast is creating connections through relatable conversation. And we do that because when we first thought about doing this podcast, Deb and I were thinking about all these different names. Like, what could we call it? And if any of you have ever written a paper in high school where you had to come up with a title, if you've ever tried to start your own podcast where you have to think of a name, if you're creating your own business where you have to think of a name, it can be the most stressful, annoying thing that you do because nothing ever sounds good. And when something does sound good, you look it up and you realize, oh, somebody already has this, or it's really similar to this other thing. So you can't really take it because you don't want to get confused. That happened this whole process when we were trying to figure out the name of this podcast. And eventually we thought, okay, what is it that people have enjoyed about us doing a podcast together in the past? And the thing we went back to was we would always joke with people, say, hey, thank you so much for doing this podcast. Just so you know, we're not professional. And I'm sure you gathered, like, we're not a professional podcast. We apologize if we ask any dumb questions or anything like that. And the majority of people would be like, no, we really enjoyed having the conversation with you guys. It felt like it was very conversational. It felt relatable, and it was just fun. It was laid back, and I really enjoyed it. And so, not to toot our own horn, but like, that was a conversation and a compliment that we had received quite a bit from people that had done our other podcasts. And so the more we thought about it, we thought, okay, well, we love connecting with people. We love connecting with people from all different backgrounds. And they're saying that it's relatable. And then eventually we just kind of slapped those two words together and came up with Connectable. And if you jumped into this podcast maybe midway through, at this point, this will be episode, I think 48, 49, I can't remember, close to 50. And if you haven't listened from the very beginning, I've been thinking lately that maybe this name and what you're hearing when we drop an episode doesn't really connect, ironically. And so I just thought, okay, let me take some time to explain what our heart is. We love connecting with people. Um, we love creating conversations and having conversations. And obviously we have a loose guideline of what we want to talk to people about based on their experience and their insights. But the idea really is just to create this space, this platform to have a conversation that hopefully all of you guys as the listeners are enjoying. Maybe you're at the gym, maybe you're on your drive, you're at work, you're listening to this podcast and you're maybe hearing a perspective that you've never heard before. Maybe you're hearing a perspective that's maybe a little bit different than yours. Maybe you're hearing a perspective that's from someone who does something and is passionate about something that is completely different than something that you're passionate about. All of those things, I think, bring a lot of value to this space. And one of the things that we struggled with or wrestled with a little bit when we first started this podcast, because obviously the goal, like, we do this for fun. We do it for free. We don't have any sponsors. Now, that being said, if you know anybody that would love to sponsor the podcast, let's talk, because that would be a cool thing to do. We would love to make money from this, but at this moment, we're not. We do it for the love of the game. We do this because we love having conversations with people. We love connecting with people. And even more so, and I can speak for Deb on her behalf since she's not here, I think the thing we love even more is when we start seeing connections made between other people. Maybe it's you start seeing, hey, someone who we know is a loyal listener of the show is having conversations with someone that we had on the show, or vice versa, and they're connected with this brand now, or they're connected with this restaurant or this organization or this person. As much as I love connecting with people, I think I love seeing other people get connected to each other even more, because I think that's what this platform is meant to be. And like I was saying, the thing that we struggled with initially was, well, it's going to take a while for this platform to grow or this show to grow because we don't have a specific direction. I think a lot of, especially in this day and age of podcasting and blogs and all of these different things, I think there's a lot of value in picking a specific niche, right? Picking a specific lane that you're going to be in, and you're going to try to be an expert in, or you're going to try to be a voice in, right? And it could be, I mean, anybody who listens to podcasts knows there's so many podcasts. It's super saturated now. There's sports podcasts, there's specific sports podcasts. Like if you love basketball, there's a ton of basketball podcasts. If you love movies, there's a ton of movie podcasts. If you love TV shows, it's specifically, if you love a specific TV show, they have podcasts that recap those shows and break down everything that happened in those shows. There's literally podcasts for everything. And a lot of the most successful ones are very specific in their lane. And now we have like, you have like Joe Rogan, right? Or some of these other podcasts that maybe they're not as specific and they're very broad, but like they're just super interesting. That's why they're so successful. But a lot of the podcasts, if you are a lesser known person, you want to make a dent in that podcasting world, you would pick a specific lane. And so when we thought about this podcast, we thought, man, we don't really have a specific lane that we're running in. Like we're going to be talking to athletes. We're going to be talking to musicians. We're going to be talking to people who own restaurants. We're going to be talking to people who do blogs. We're going to be talking to people who are moms and dads and just everyday people. We don't have a specific lane other than we just want to connect with people. We want to give people that maybe aren't well known yet a platform to give them some exposure. Say, hey, look at what this awesome person is doing. You guys should be connected with them. We want to get people connected to people that maybe have a huge platform, and there's like, hey, have you heard this person talk about the thing that they're passionate about? We want to put that out here so that you guys can get connected. We can bring them into the space and that you guys get exposed to what they're doing. We just want to help people get connected. And so we thought, yeah, screw it. That's just our lane. We want to help. We want to help people get connected. We want to help create connections through our conversations. And even though it's not specific, and even though it may take a while to build up a big audience and a loyal audience and a loyal following, this is who we are. We love connecting. I think that's one of the awesome things about Deb is that she is really passionate about connecting with people, and she's really interested in having conversations with people even if it's a topic that she's not even that familiar with. Like that's why she's a great a podcaster. That's why she's a great podcast co-host, is because she's an awesome conversationalist, and she an interest in every guest that we have on the show. I hope I do the same thing, but like, just speaking as her co-host, I've seen her do this for a long time. She's really good at it, and she's really good at bringing interesting questions to the table, and helping develop that conversation. And that's just a part of this dynamic that I appreciate, and that's part of why I think we're able to connect with people, because she brings a very specific perspective to the table, and she has a very genuine interest in what they're talking about, even if she has no clue what it is. Like we've talked before, like neither one of us fishes, but I don't think she was on the episode with Jim, but when we had Happy on, like she brought some awesome questions to the table, and through that was able to create an awesome conversation. That's one of the things I appreciate about having her as a co-host of mine. um and like I said, our goal is to just help people get connected to each other. And so it's been a really fun thing, and we just said, hey, that's our lane. We want to help people get connected. It's not specific, but that's the route that we're running. We're going to go in that direction. And so that's really the heart of this show, is to help people get connected. And the cool thing too is we've gotten connected to people that haven't been on the show, that just listen. I can think of a bunch of people, and I feel like every time I do this, I tell myself don't do this, because I always tend to leave people off. But here we go. I'm going to do it anyways. I know that, my mother-in-law, Paula, listens. She's been a supporter from the beginning. I know Paul Marshall has been a big supporter. He got connected to our show because of Bree Lambert Sanders. He runs with her occasionally. They're friends. And then he became a loyal listener, and he gives us, shouts out pretty often. We also, Deb got him connected to Crumble because of how much she mentions Crumble. And so he ordered some Crumble. He doesn't even live in Sacramento. He ordered some Crumble, and hopefully, Paul, if you're listening, man, hopefully you enjoyed those cookies. And you're lucky, dude. You're a runner. You're a cyclist, so I'm sure you burnt those cookies off quick. So hopefully you were able to enjoy those. My brother Jordan, he's been a guest on the show multiple times. He's also a listener, and we appreciate his support and his feedback too. I'll ask him, like, hey man, what do you think about this, or what do you think about that? And he's always good to give me his honest feedback. I appreciate that. Brandon Stokely has always been a huge supporter of any podcast that I've done, and specifically this one. Like, he'll send us messages, or he'll share in his stories of different episodes, and man, we appreciate that, Brandon, because it helps us grow the show. But anyways, like, my whole point being is, it's not just our ability to connect with the guests that we have on the show and get them connected with our audience, but like we've met through social media. We've met people that are listeners, and we've gotten connected with them, and that's been really cool too. So I just love this idea of connection. I love this idea of connection. And like I said, with this show, we talk anywhere between 45 and sometimes an hour and a half. We just kind of go. And my perspective has always been this: with this show, being connectable, trying to get connected to people, creating connections through relatable conversations. I've always treated this space like if you were sitting down with people at a Starbucks or a coffee shop, and you were sitting down with a group of people, or maybe just another person, and having a conversation about anything and everything. Maybe you start talking about your families, and then it evolves into talking about your favorite sports teams, and then it evolves into talking about a movie that you saw, your favorite TV show, and it just bounces from place to place, and it just happens organically, because I think that's how great conversations happen. I'm a big quality time person, and so I also look at this podcast like a car ride. If I was in the car with someone for, say, like a 3 hour, 4 hour road trip, I want to have a conversation with that person. Now, hopefully I'm in the car with someone that enjoys conversation just as much as I do, but I love that time being with someone in a car, because it's a perfect time. Like, you can't go anywhere, right? Like, you're there, you're driving to a certain place, and it's a perfect opportunity to have some really great conversations. And I've gone on trips with people before, and the conversation just stays very surface level. Like I said, favorite movie that you recently saw, TV show, your thoughts about a sporting event that you went to, just super, super surface level stuff. I've had other car rides where it's very deep the entire time. You are wading you're diving in the deep end of that pool the entire time, and you're thinking, you leave that car ride just like thinking about all these different things, like, man, I never thought about that. Or you're just thinking about life in a different way. And then I've had the ones I love the most, though, are the ones that go from place to place. You go to the shallow end, you go to the deep end, and the conversation is just really good, and you walk away just feeling energized and refreshed from that conversation, because it was very organic, and it was some really good quality time you spent with that person. That's what I want this podcast to feel like. I want this podcast to feel like you're sitting down with either myself and Deb, or myself, Deb, and a guest, and you're that fourth person sitting in the conversation, hearing what we're saying, hearing the different experience and insight and ideas that someone has or that we have, and you feel like you're gaining something from it. Even if you disagree with us, hopefully it's giving you a different perspective, or helping you see things from a different perspective that you maybe never knew. Or maybe we're getting you connected with someone that is part of an organization that you never knew about, and that you want to start supporting. Or maybe um, it's someone's business, that they have this business that you never knew about, that now you're connected with, and you can start supporting it. Or maybe it's just, we've had some people on here that they don't have a business, they don't have an organization, they're just awesome people. My brother, hilarious. Episode 6, the hardest I've ever laughed on a podcast. That's just meant to bring some joy to someone's life, some positivity to someone's day. And if you're having a rough day, throw on that episode, and you're gonna realize that, hey, life's pretty good. Especially one of the stories he tells, you could be in a much worse situation like he was in that episode. But it brings some laughter, it brings some joy to like I said, your drive, your work day, to your you riding the bike, or jogging on the treadmill at the gym. Travis Cole, my friend Travis Cole, just a really good dude that brings a lot of great perspective. And he's an athlete, he's a dad, he's a husband. He has kind of shared just different parts of what he's doing, his half Ironman, his life with his kids, and what he does, the business he has with his wife. It's just like everyday conversation. And even if it's something like that, I think it brings value to our lives. It brings a different perspective. And like I said, hopefully all of these things, whether it's more of just a surface level conversation, or maybe wades more in the deep end, hopefully these things are bringing some positivity, some light to everybody's world. That's really our whole goal, is to get connected, help people, get to know some people that maybe they weren't aware of, and help us all to get a little bit more connectable, help us all to get a little bit more connected to each other, and to what we're all doing. So like I said, I just wanted to hop on really quick. I wanted to make sure I have a timer. I've been going for about 17 minutes at this point, and I could probably go for an entire hour, but I don't think anybody wants to hear that for an entire hour. So like I said, I plan on keeping this one super short. But like I said, I just wanted to, sometimes I feel like when we do this podcast, we don't necessarily do the best job of reminding people like why we're doing this, because it is it's kind of like a subtle thing, right? Like the connection is being made just by us talking to someone or sharing our thoughts about a specific topic. Not often do we go back and say, hey, this is how these things connect. Or uh, we love connections, we love making connections with people. Like we don't really state that explicitly. But like I said, I thought it would be important to go back and just say, hey, we do this podcast because we just want to have conversations, and hopefully through that conversation, people can get connected to each other. And I just felt like that was an important thing to kind of go back on and just touch on real quick. Sorry, excuse me. I just took a drink of water. Usually someone can fill in the gap when I take a drink of water, but tonight I'm on my own. So when you heard that silence, it's just me taking a drink of water. But anyways, I did want to share one thing too. I wanted to share a quote that I found, and it's very simple. That says, when we're connected to others, we become better people. When we're connected to others, we become better people. It's by Randy Pausch. I'm gonna be honest too. I normally, when I post quotes on Instagram, I try to do a little bit of a motivational Monday thing, and every once in a while I'll post a quote in the middle of the week. When I'm doing that, when I'm creating the artwork for that, I always look to see who the person is that I'm quoting, because I sometimes I don't know. I've never heard of the name. And then I'm like, what am I posting? It might be an amazing quote, but I don't want to post the quote of some douchebag that's doing horrible things in this world. You know what I mean? I just never know. I'm assuming that they wouldn't have a motivational or inspirational quote out there on Google, but you never know. That being said, I read that. I have no idea who Randy Posh is. Uh, so hopefully I'll have to do some research after that. And if he's a horrible person, then I'm going to be taking this out of this episode. But that's one of those things I always make an effort, like a focused effort to do is like, hey, make sure you look up who this person is. So that way, even if you post it, you at least know if there's any backlash, you know who the person is and you understand what you're doing. Didn't do that this time. So hopefully Randy Posh, hopefully Randy, you're a solid dude and you're not going to get me in trouble. So, but anyways, that being said, I feel like that quote was just really uh, simple but cool, and that's basically why we're doing this podcast. When we're connected to others, we become better people. I 100% agree with that. And I also agree with the flip side of that, where sometimes when you get connected to people, the wrong people, it can make you a worse version of yourself. It can make you um, make decisions and think about things or think about yourself in a negative way. That's not great. So can obviously there's kind of two sides to every coin, and this specific coin could definitely be bad if you get connected to the wrong person, or if you have some excuse me, weak connections, or connections that aren't solid. That can be detrimental to your life, and it can do the exact opposite of that. But I do believe in general, when we're connected, genuinely authentically connected to good people who are doing great things, I believe that makes us better people. I believe that strengthens us. I believe it creates this sense of passion inside of us. I believe it helps us to see the world in a much broader view, and it helps us to gain a greater perspective of the world around us because we're connected to people that maybe don't act like or think like us. And I think that's super valuable, and that's the importance of connection. The more connected we are to people, the better we become, the stronger we become, the more um, passionate we become about the things that we're passionate about. Because I think we can look at someone else, and if they're passionate about the things that they're pursuing, that inspires us. I think that creates it like stokes the fire inside of us. At least it does for me. When I see someone who's super passionate, like on this podcast, we have conversations with people who are really passionate about what they're doing. I leave inspired, and not just inspired, like, hey, that was really cool, but I leave inspired thinking, okay, how am I going to pursue the things I'm passionate about just as much as they are? And so if I didn't connect with them, that fire inside of me wouldn't have been stoked. But because we had that connection, because we initiated the connection with them and we just had a conversation, I feel like that helps me become a better person. And so I really believe that connection is a massive part of who we are. And it's a massive part of, becoming a better person. Just like this says, I think we become better people when we're connected. And I just wanted to share that quote. I thought it was pretty cool, and kind of on um you know it was kind of basically what I was trying to communicate tonight. So that being said, now I've talked for like 20 minutes and 22 minutes, 22 and a half minutes. I've talked too much. So anyways, thank you for all of those people out there who have listened and decided to connect with me, just me tonight. I do appreciate it. As always, we would love feedback. If you have any ideas about who we should have on the podcast, if you have any ideas about or what topics we could talk about, uh, as long as it's not political, we don't really do the political thing. Someone also mentioned crypto. I don't know anything about that. So there's a couple of topics like, yeah, we're probably not going to talk about because we know nothing about it. And, just because you suggest someone for this podcast does not mean that we're going to automatically have them on, because I just can't do it. If we don't feel like they're a good fit for the show, then we're just not going to do it. So just beware if you suggest someone. That's like a little disclaimer. Doesn't mean they're automatically going to be on the show, but we'd be more than willing to look into what they do and what they're about. And if they're a great fit, then yeah, we'd love to have them on. And if they're not, then we probably just won't mention it. We'll probably just kind of swipe that one to the side and not worry about it and not connect with them. So, anyways, we would just love to hear more from you guys. Please help us spread the word about this podcast. We're trying to get connected to as many people as possible. We want more people to hear this show. And Yeah. So please share with a friend, and don't just tell them about the podcast. Like, let's be proactive. Send them a link to the show. Text them a link, email them a link, and say, hey, here's a show that I think you would really like. That way it takes like half the work out for them. They don't have to go to iTunes and search it. They don't have to go to YouTube and search it. Like, all they have to do is click a link, and then they can listen. And if they like it, great. And if they don't, well, bummer for us. But yeah, send them a link, share the episode, retweet, share to your stories, all that stuff. Like, when you guys do that stuff, write a review on Apple Podcasts. We really appreciate that. I think we're at like 16 or 17 reviews. If we can get to 20 reviews by the end of October, that would be fantastic. If we get to 30 reviews by the end of the year, I might cry. I won't cry on air, but I might cry in private and just say, like, I can't believe that we have this much support. So if you want to hear about me cry because of so much joy for getting reviews, then submit a review. Ask your friend to submit a review and just tell them, like, hey, I know you don't listen to this podcast. Just trust me. It's dope. Write a 5-star review saying, nice work. That's all you have to do. It can be super simple. All I need is that 5-star review. So we definitely appreciate that. And make sure you guys follow us on all social media at Connectable Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And on Twitter, it is at Connectable Pod. Again, please follow us on all those different spaces. And like I said, we love to connect with you guys. We appreciate the support of everyone who tunes in every single week. We can't overstate it. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate, you subscribing. We appreciate you guys tuning in every week. It really does mean a lot. So yeah, that's pretty much all I've got. So make sure you don't let this episode scare you off. If you didn't enjoy me rambling by myself, it's okay. We will have a guest next week, so it will be back to normal. And hey, if you enjoy this episode, let me know. Maybe I'll give it another shot. Like I said, this was one of those things where I'm like, I probably shouldn't try to do this, but then there's a part of me that's like, no, this would be a good thing to challenge myself with. Can you hold it down for 26 minutes by yourself and still hold people's interest? Don't know. Won't find out until I hear from you guys. So yeah, would love to know what you guys think about this episode. And like I said, next week we get back to a more normal situation. So until then, I will talk to you guys later. See ya. Thanks for watching the show. If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you like it, share it, and hit the subscribe button to get a new episode every week. We'll see you next time on the Connectable Podcast.